For Guitar Teacher Hangout. My name is David Hart, and today I've got some of the guys from the UK, and we're going to have a bit of chat about everything to do with the business of teaching guitar. Okay, so I'll start with you, Ben Al-Qaidi. Have you got a question for us today?
Yeah, I haven't thought of it in one neat question, but I had probably the worst lesson I've ever done so far yesterday with a couple of 5-year-olds. It was their first group lesson, and they were just absolutely manic. Nothing I could do to kind of calm them down. So
Yeah.
I definitely didn't handle it all that well anyway, but I'd like to get some kind of standard operating procedures for that.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, no worries. The worst experiences are the best learning experiences. So yeah, I always walk away from them thinking, okay, this is great because I've got a real challenge here now. I can sort of learn, and next time I come up against a couple of really tough 5-year-olds, I'll be ready for them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So why don't we just dive into that? What I'm doing now, it's got to change the format slightly. As I'm just going to ask a question, and we'll just work through it, and then I'll ask, the next question, and we'll go there. So I'll come to Paul after we've covered this, and that way I'll be able to slice up these videos into shorter videos based on just one topic, and it'll make it easier for us to look for what we're after, or other teachers to find. So let's start with that. And okay, so can you describe a little bit more about what happened with the two 5-year-olds?
Well, I think they were very manic before they even started. I had a lesson at 5 till 5:30, and theirs was due to start at 5. And They came through the door while my lesson was still going on. And it's just a hallway outside the teaching room. So they just sat down in the hallway and just didn't stop making noise for about 3 minutes. And I was assuming that the dad would say that, guys, there's a lesson going on there, we need to be quiet. But he didn't do anything. So after a few minutes, I stepped outside and said, "Hi guys, can you come back in 10 minutes? I've got a lesson here." And they slowly wandered out, making tons of noise. Came back in 10 minutes, and it's hard to really explain. Just constant little kind of questions trying to distract you. And I was saying, "What are the rules?" And they'd say the rules, and they'd instantly break the rules. I'd be like, "Oh no, what are the rules?" And they'd say the rules, and they'd instantly break the rules. And I just started using an almost stern voice. So the whole way through I was like, "Yeah, no, no, no." I was like, "Oh, Oscar." And he instantly started crying. And I thought, if I'm going to be just the slightest tiny smidgen this side of friendly, you're going to start crying. Otherwise, you're going to be misbehaving. There's no winning it.
He's defaulted to the strategy he knows works, especially on, for parents sometimes it doesn't work, but for somebody who's not exactly in that close circle, some tears, instantly, what do? Any adult instantly, if they've made somebody else's child cry, it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, what have I done? I've broken your child. It's not, I didn't mean it, sorry." So these kind of situations do occur, and I think especially with little kids, you're not going to always be able to control it. As much as we can sit here and talk about the perfect world, we know it doesn't exist. And you talk to any parent, and it's easy to say to a parent, "Wow, your child is mucking around a lot or misbehaving. Aren't you doing good parenting?" Blah blah blah. And it's easy for people to say that, but when you're an actual parent and you're in that situation, trying to get your child to behave every day it's not only impossible. I don't think it's very good for them either. I think children need a little bit of space. They need to sort of misbehave sometimes and spread their wings a little bit and test boundaries. It's all part of being a child. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself in this situation. If you've got this situation happening a lot, and you can see it amongst all let's say you've got a lot of young groups and a lot of young kids, and they're all mucking around, and you never seem to have control, you've got a problem. That's a serious problem. But if we're talking about a one-off class here, we're talking about happening occasionally, and even if you've got just these two kids are a little bit difficult from week to week, it still doesn't mean you're failing as a teacher in any way. It just means that you've got a big challenge on your hands, and sometimes it's a parent thing as well. The parents don't sort of reel their kids in, that the kids just think that they can run wild. in any environment. So they're kind of what I'm doing here is really just kind of letting you know that it's okay. That's the first thing. But the second thing is let's look at what we can actually do to improve, to make a better go of it next time. Is this something these kids do often, or is it just was this a one-off? Or
that was their first, well, kind of their first group lesson. We had them back to back Friday for their intros, lesson 1 and 2. So they were just in the same room for too long, and they were getting just too restless. It was kind of like that, but nowhere near as bad. So they were noisy, but I was kind of channeling their noise into things. So I'd be saying, let's do some clapping in time, and let's shout out the numbers when we're clapping, and let's say them quietly when we're resting. And they were really, really shouting them out, and they were kind of enjoying the fact that they were allowed to be obnoxiously loud. But I was fine with that because they were in the lesson. That might have set it up badly, so that when they then came back to the group, that problem was already due to occur.
Okay, cool. That's a good observation. Yeah.
The third and fourth and fifth? No, third, fourth, and fifth intro lessons, they were on their own, and everything was very calm. They were doing the practice. It wasn't kind of at the guitar every day practice, but they were either playing guitar or talking about what are the names of the strings, how do we play this rhythm. They were doing something every day, so they were making some progress. And then after the fifth intro lesson, it was half term. They took a week and a half off, came back, and just absolutely explosive.
Yeah. And so this is the first. Did you say this is the first time they've had a group together?
Yeah, kind of. The first actual group lesson that wasn't meant to be an intro lesson.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, look, I wouldn't be too concerned, but what I would do is very much, next time try and set it up in such a way that you know that you're going to be able to stop that as much as possible. Things like, and I can give you a scenario. I've got obviously different examples that I've been through, but there was an example of a teacher that I had in Sydney, and he was a very good teacher. I wouldn't say he had a lot of experience, but he'd been teaching for probably about a year or two, and he just had these two kids in a group. He hadn't taught a group until he joined us at G4, and he had these two kids, and they were just off the wall. And he just said to me, he said, I can't. These kids they just don't settle. They just don't behave. And being one that likes a challenge, I said, all right, I'll come in and I'll have a look. But what actually happened was I had planned to do that. I turned up to the school to step in for him, but he ended up not being there that day. He was sick or something, I can't remember. So he wasn't even there, so I did the class. And immediately when I went into the class, I could see the boys were in that up mode. They were ready to sort of go crazy and do things. And I went in hard but friendly, and it's kind of hard to explain, but I just said, guys, I need your full attention now. I need your full attention. And it must have took me about 10 minutes to get these guys to quieten down and to settle and to follow the rules. And so the first thing I did is I put the 2 rules up on the board, and I said, who knows these 2 rules? And they're shouting, okay, calm down, let's do it. Now what I want you to do is, I went to the first boy, say his name was Max. I said, Max, can you tell me the first rule? And got him to tell the first rule. Great. That's all I need from him, Max. Peter, what's the second rule? Bang, he told the second rule. Okay, so I want to practice the rules with you guys. Okay, let's just do a little bit of practice. So who knows the first rule? And bang, they both started calling out, guys, we're following the rules. Okay, so the rule is you put your hand up. All right, so again, I'll ask the question. Rule number 1. So all I did was really spend 10 minutes teaching them how to follow the rules, and that worked. That worked quite well. Now, let's say into the second 10 minutes of the lesson, what I did is I started to teach them something, and I decided what I would do is just teach them something very simple, and they'd already been working a little bit on, which was smoke on the water. They knew kind of a little bit of it, but I thought, let's just do a little bit more of that first. We won't worry about the normal format of G4. All I want to try and do is get you guys to behave. That's my motivation here. So the idea was that in the second 10 minutes, I took them through learning something, again reinforcing the rules all the time. And they kept, pushing the boundaries, bang, bang, bang. And then in the last 10 minutes, they started to really get into the sync of it. And then at the end, it was quite interesting, because there was this excitement of them, because they realized they'd been productive, that they hadn't wasted their lessons as they had been doing. And I said, see guys, by following the rules, you've had a great lesson. And then I went out and I took them out to their parents. So there's only actually one of the mothers was there. And I said to the mother, these boys, amazing. They nailed this riff. We've only done the first part of it, but they nailed it in this lesson, and they're ready to go. Now the mother was like, great, that's good, and she was like, okay, cool, that's that's how it is. That's the lesson, and off they went. Anyway, I got a call towards the end of that week asking if I could be their teacher every week, and these are the calls you get sometimes. And I said, why? What's the story? And she said, they're possessed. They're practicing every day. They just want to practice, and they're talking about you all the time. And they just can't wait to come back. And I said, well, unfortunately, I won't be here every week, but I will turn up again for this lesson, and I'll be there with the other teacher, and we'll just go through it, and I'll make sure the lesson goes smoothly. But basically, what happened, the difference was the fact that I took that 10 minutes in the beginning to teach them how to learn, how to pay attention and behave, and they actually took to that. Now, admittedly, they weren't 5. These kids were about 7. They're a little bit older, so there is a little bit of difference there, and it can be a little bit harder with 5-year-olds to settle them down sometimes. But the basic idea is the same, and that is that you want to not worry about anything else other than teaching them how to focus and how to give you some attention in the class.
That's what I was doing, though, and the problem was that lasted half an hour.
Okay.
I didn't really get anywhere with it. I do have the video. Would you mind having a watch of the video?
Oh, no problem. Yeah, send me the video. That'd be great.
I'll send you a video. What was specifically kind of stuff were you asking before I had this one that I want to send you? Were you hoping for a standard intro or a standard group, or my most troublesome intro or group? Because I know you asked me to send you the video. Oh
yeah, no, really, you can send me any video that you like. Really, I'm just looking for, when you send me videos, things that are a challenge for you. If you feel that you've got, especially if there's a repetitive pattern going on where you're struggling with a certain kind of student or a certain kind of group, and week after week it just doesn't feel like you're getting where you want to go with it. That's really, you can send me examples of lessons that are going smoothly, and that's okay. But I'm probably going to get more out of seeing a lesson that's not working, and that way I can sort of break it down for you and tell you what I see.
That's what I thought, but I thought I'd check.
Yeah, in this case, it'd be good, to see what happened with these kids, because it does help a lot when I see it in action. And you know this, I'm assuming that you've seen the video where I spoke to the boy in Sydney recently about his practice.
Yeah, Newham School.
Yeah. So you can see, I can talk about this all day long, but when you see me doing it, it's different, right? You get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and I really wish I could do more of that. It's just setting up the circumstances. I've done things with Mia, and there are some videos that do that, but it's different with your own child as well, as it is to Elliot, because in some respects she's well trained, and it doesn't show the scenarios, especially teaching in groups. Okay, so the main, just for this sake of this, the main takeaway that I would say is try and look for and I think you're onto it because you mentioned it yourself earlier, and that is how you're actually initially setting up the class, what's going on, and if it's taking you half an hour to get them to settle, it sounds to me that they're not taking it seriously, and they need some kind of attention or something to get their attention. To click into line, whatever that is. And sorry, that's the other thing that I was going to say is often you'll find that one of them is the main instigator, who's do you know what I mean? They're actually getting the other one.
No doubt about which one it was yesterday.
Say again?
No doubt about which one it was yesterday.
Yeah. So when you know who it is, target them. Okay. If you know who the one is, target them. Make them give them a feeling of I'm depending on you to, and build their confidence, because a lot of this behavior, and I've mentioned this many times before, a lot of missed behavior is confidence. It's that they don't want to actually do things that they can't do in front of you, in front of their peers, their friends, whatever. So mucking around is a distraction. It gets you off the work. So if you can sort of recognize it as a confidence issue, then building their confidence. If you say, let's say his name's Joel. Say, Joel, I want you to start with the picking because you are just the picking champion. Give me a high five for that one. Bang, good man. You are the picking champion. Can you show us how to do the picking? Good. Away you go. So he feels good because you've sort of labelled him as the champion of picking. And then you go to the other child. You don't leave them out, and you say, okay, you're the chord champion or something like that. Can you show us how you play that C chord? Because I know you can do it really well. And so you pick something that they can already do, and that they're comfortable with, and start with it, build their confidence, and use that as the kind of platform for getting their behaviour in line.
Yeah. Something I thought might have been a bit of a problem was the fact that they came in so high pressure, and I can do my best to kind of relieve that pressure straight away, but I was quite surprised at one of them. It's the dad, and then it's just the friend's dad, I guess. But yeah. They came in, and they were making that tons of noise outside the room, and he knew I had a lesson going on, and he didn't get involved at all. They were just running around, bouncing off the walls, screaming at the top of their voices, and I was really surprised that he didn't do anything, and I went outside and said, sorry guys, you have to come back in 10 minutes, and on their way out they were ringing the bell, running around, making tons of noise. They hung around the window for a few, like maybe 2 minutes, still making tons of noise. And I just thought, maybe this will be different next week because a different parent will be there. But at the moment, it's just like there's a safety device in the room. He'll stop them getting injured, but he's not there to be a parent at all.
Yeah,
you know how to approach that and say, do you reckon you can make sure everything's nice and calm before the lesson, rather than letting them bang their heads together thousands of times?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because look, let's face it, a lot of the time, the kids are taken care of by the mums, and the mothers do the majority of the kind of disciplinary work at home, and dad sort of reluctantly takes the kid to the guitar lesson because mum's cooking, preparing dinner or whatever, so he does that to do his husbandly duties, but he's not necessarily wanting to be involved in the discipline of the child. Just if he looks like he's going to run on the road, hey, don't do that. That's probably the extent of it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes it's funny, and you got to be careful with this, that you're not condescending in any way, but sometimes parents need parent help. They just don't experience. They don't spend a lot of time parenting because, especially where they might be working a lot, and like I said, one parent is taking care of the child most of the time between the school and the other parent, and whatever, could be grandma as well, who knows, but often the child is getting looked after by other people a lot, so that particular parent, in this case the father, may not be doing a lot. So it's not that they don't want to, it's just maybe they don't even know how. It's like, well, I don't know what to do with a 5-year-old. This is the first one I've ever had, and I just sort of, whereas you may have a better idea, and I know with myself, after a number of years of teaching, you start to understand parenting because you're around children all the time, you're around parents, you start to see the difference between, in fact, I went back to, and I spoke to Emma about this, is that I said we have had a very privileged position because we've spent literally, I've spent 3 decades working around children and parents. Now, even school teachers don't work with parents that much. They work with the children in a classroom, but they don't actually see the parents except for the occasional parent night and a choir. Whatever. I know that because of my daughter at school now. So when you see parents and children together, we have a very unique, privileged position that we're doing it for every day, or for a lot. I was doing it every day. It was, at one point I was doing it like 6 days a week, every day from about 3 o'clock through till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And so I'm not. It's not just that I'm working with kids; it's that I'm seeing how parents interact with kids. So I can see the different strategies that parents use and work and don't work. And that's really where I learned my trade, was watching parents and going, okay, this kid's really good. I wonder why. What does that parent do? How do they manage their child? And even with my own wife, I have to be careful because I have those years of experience, and it's easy for me, which I do sometimes, and I, apologize for when I do, but I sometimes criticize her and say, hey, that's not how you should do it, because that's. And then I realize, well, she doesn't know because she doesn't have those years of experience I do. So, kind of what I'm getting at here is that you might be looking at this dad and thinking, don't you have a clue? Don't you know what's going on here? Whereas he may not. He may not know what to do in that situation. And you can actually teach the parent, but like I said, in a nice way. Do it in a friendly way. So the question is, how do we do that?
Yeah, it's the way to introduce it without it coming off as me saying, here's what you need to do with your child.
Yes, that's right, and especially when they're 10 years older than you, and you're sort of telling them how to be a parent. But the way that I guess I did it was that it's the same strategy that I use. It's the same strategy that you saw me use with the boy in Yoakum School. Is I start with positive, with praise, and if you start with praise, you'll win people over. So in the case of the father, look for genuine praise that you can give him for being a father. Let's just say, make up a name. Let's say his name's Malcolm, and you say, Malcolm, you got the cutest little boy there. He's such a good kid. I'm really having a great time working with him. Sort of build a little bit of rapport, build him up, and say, obviously you're working with him at home, or whatever's going on at home. It's great, and I really appreciate what you've done with him. Because I know the practices where the real action happens. We can only guide you. So you kind of say all these things, which are true, and then you lead that conversation into saying, can I just tell you, just when you come in on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, whatever it is, can I just ask if you could keep the boys really quiet, just because we do have other lessons going on, and it'd be great if you could help me out on that one. Yeah, sure, no problem. And you'll get a very positive reaction in most cases if you deliver it at the right time. If you come in early, the same again. I go back to the scenario of talking about the kid with practice. If I came straight in and go, all right, something's not right here. Your practice is not going well. Talk to me. What's going on? Immediately he's going to feel defensive and like, who are you? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Ben, are you there?
Yeah. So I had to find that unmute button.
Cool. Yeah. So you got the idea?
Yeah, all makes sense. And I think I've got some ideas. For example, I could definitely say, I'm really glad you came in early. Could you just make sure that while you're outside? Shh.
Yeah. And you have to remember that you're looking after everybody in your school, and I know that's what you're doing, and that's where a little bit of the perhaps annoyance or irritation comes from, because here you're trying to teach, and here you've got a parent who is not respecting that fact of what you're trying to do, and so sometimes you just got to come out and go, hey guys, we need to be quiet. Hi, Malcolm, how are you? Could you just make sure the guys are quiet? Thanks, appreciate that. And then run back in. Now, sometimes you might have to do that quickly. Sometimes I may get a little bit offended by that. Who are you telling me what to do? Blah blah blah. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, if that's the best you can do, it's got to be done. Somebody has got to take charge of those kids, and you can't keep coming out of your lesson to do it. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Yeah, no worries. That was a good topic. Okay, 5-year-olds. Just going to make sure I write this down so I don't forget. 5-year-olds. Okay, so I'll go on to you, Paul. What would you like to talk about today?
I was just thinking I've got some stuff to riff on for Ben's one, but
you go for it. Yeah, please.
Because I've had that before. I remember I had a kid who was 6, and it was the first child I've ever had that I thought I'm going to have to tell him I can't teach him. I can't do it. I could not. He wouldn't sit still, falling off the chair. His mum was in the corner just blasé. So, I'm getting ready to, kill him. And so that same sort of thing, the parent wasn't parenting. I thought, well, I went from that thing. That was the first job I ever had that I'm going to have to give up on. I went home and then I kind of reflected and thought, well, I cross a very thin line between fun and and discipline. I'm kind of more. I try and be too fun and too friendly to their friend, rather than their kind of lead or role model, teacher. So in the second lesson I went back, I started off by sitting down, very stern voice, saying, right, today we're here to learn. I'm going to teach you to play. I need you listening, and I kind of reset out the boundaries very slowly and very succinctly, so he knew exactly what to expect. And it was probably one of the best lessons I've ever had. It completely turned. Just from starting off, bang, we're doing this, you've got to do this. And then it kind of had that realization, I need to be a little bit more stricter. I'd walk too far, too on the fun side, I suppose, rather than, the strict side. So yeah, it just came, I was just thinking about it then when Ben was saying it. So I'd kind of speak my mind a little bit. Sorry?
Has that changed how you'd act in general with 5 or 6 year olds, or only once you realise you have to?
Yeah.
More
definitely.
Automatically starting
Is anyone else getting that feedback coming through your system?
A lot of echo.
A lot of echo, yeah. I don't know if you've got a headphone or something. You can just...
Any better? Oh, no.
Still there. Maybe, yeah, mute it just for the minute. Sorry, Ben, you go on.
I was just saying, have you automatically started always going in slightly sterner and then bringing the friendship in later? Or have you kept it as you were, and only if you think, in this case, I need to be a bit sterner, then you are? Has it changed how you automatically would be with anyone, or has it just given you a new tool to use when you need to?
I think it's changed it how I'm with everyone. Do we still get an echo, Dave? Was that?
Let's see.
Is it still echoing?
Still echoing.
Still echoing. It must be me then. I'll log into my headphones. But yeah, I was just saying, I change it with everyone now. And I'm a lot more, stricter. So it's always been a problem. When I taught at the music school, Yamaha Music School, was one of the criticisms, I suppose, that came back of you're a little bit too, not sort of strict.
Too nice.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's, and I have spoken about it, probably not a lot recently, but I spoke a lot about it, especially early on and with the teachers that I used to train at G4, and that is that your first job is not to be their friend. Your first job is to be their teacher. The friend is something that comes second, and this is one of the things that, when I see websites from a lot of guitar teachers and they talk about friendly teachers, that's nice, but when you're using the friendship as often what it is the friendship is kind of making up for the lack of teaching. And I don't mean that you be unfriendly, but the idea is that the first priority is to teach. That's what we're here to do. And when the strategy that I use in my teaching, especially with the groups, was to start off stricter. Start off by being tough, and then getting sort of relaxing as you go. Because especially with children, if you start off soft and get tough, then they think that you used to be a nice person. That's what they think. No, he used to be a nice guy, but now he's not. But if you start off strict and get softer, they think, wow, he's not such a bad guy, So they when you go in that direction, it seems different. And when they know that you're strict from the beginning and then you soften up, it's actually they still know that strict guy is there. The strict guy is behind this friendly guy. We like the friendly guy, but to get the friendly guy, we need to behave. If we muck around, the strict guy is going to come back pretty quickly. And that's what Paul did, is he sort of jumped in there with the, this is how it is. I'm getting tough on you today, and if you want the nice guy to come back, you need to get in line. So yeah.
We've been talking about groups. Were you saying that's what you do from day one of group, David, or from day one, from the introduction, the whole way through the intro, you'd be stern?
I was pretty. it's a balance, because what happens is that my priority was to teach, and because I went through that phase, and I think what happens, there's this period for most teachers when they start out in their probably first 5 years is about right. You try and be friendly. You try and like people like you, because a common thing from parents that they say to you, which you take as a compliment, is, "Oh, he really likes you." That's great. Is he learning, or is she learning? And it's a common thing that parents would say. "Oh, he really likes you," or "She really likes you," or "Thinks you're so cool," or "Thinks you're great," and all this. And your kind of ego goes, "Oh, this is good," but none of them practice. None of them learn anything. But they really like me. And this was the kind of the point I made. So yes, I started off. I wasn't strict in a nasty way. I wasn't strict in such a way that I would say either you do it my way, or I'm going to pull a big stick out, or or I'm going to punish you. It wasn't like that. It's just the tone and the body language and this kind of very directness of the way that you approach it. So let's say, for example, you've got this new student and his name's Johnny, and you say, "Okay, hi Johnny, I'm David. How are you? Come on in. Come on, sit down for me, mate." And let's just say he's a little guy. "Come sit down for me." That's it, great. And then next thing, Johnny's mucking around. "Johnny, I need you to sit up straight for me, okay? I need you to sit up straight. All right? Good man. That's the way." So that's how I'm talking to a 5-year-old, and I'm always directing him and saying, "Okay, we need to do that." And so I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm really letting the parent know, I don't need you to direct your child. I'm going to be directing your child from here. All I need for you is to observe and to get your support. So when I see a parent stepping in, and I know that you've had this, Ben, where you have a parent, don't do that. Listen.
Was this child as well, so that's definitely related.
Say again. Sorry.
Last time we spoke about it, it was this child, and this is the parent who wasn't there. So if she's there, I imagine the dynamic will be very different, even if I did everything perfectly based on what we've discussed here.
Yeah. And so what you're looking for is to be the leader, so to speak. And so it doesn't matter whether the parent's there or not, that the child is going to listen to you.
When I speak to her today, would it be a good thing to say, I think the main thing that I need to pay attention to here, with what happened yesterday, is your son is quite used to you stepping in and saying, "Oh, you need to do this. So in this next lesson, I'd love it if you sat in, that's all brilliant, but do you mind not interrupting, that's a bad way to say it, do you mind not stepping in and helping get, what's his name, on track, because I feel like he needs to see me as the authority in this scenario, otherwise when you're not here, and it's the other parent, it's going to be chaos."
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that she's done anything wrong. I'll need to make sure that I point out that she's been really useful, but thank you very much, here's something I need to do myself, because otherwise it's going to be a problem for future lessons.
Yeah, you can see what you're doing, and that's great, because you're finding your way, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say some things occasionally that will offend someone. It's going to happen, okay? And that's just you're finding, people, they break out in tears. Other people, you can say whatever, you can criticize them, and it's water off a duck's back. So some people that you can be straight with. You can say, hey, Joan, can you just leave it to me for this one? Thanks. I know you understand. And she'll go, yeah, no problem. And others, if you say that, they'll be offended. So you've got to kind of be tactful in the way you do it. So I wouldn't say there's one way to say it. I think you just need to find out who you're talking to and what is the way to do that. But mostly what I would say is it's more about your actions. So if the parent, if you can just show them that you're in control and that you've got this one, then they'll generally back off. Not always at first, and some of them take a little while to get it, but they generally back off after a certain period.
If you remember this, Ryan, it's more a matter of I need to step in much quicker than I feel is appropriate. So obviously if they start making loads of noise, you step in straight away. But if, for example, I can't think of an easy behaviour example, so I'll just say if they're doing some picking and they're looking, and I've just said, oh, tip of the pick, and they're looking at it, making sure they're on the tip of the pick, the parent might then say, and bracing, and I think, yeah, but one thing at a time. That's the kind of thing I feel like is going on with the discipline as well. I feel like I would be saying it just as it became worth saying it. I don't want to step
I
on
know
the
exactly what you're talking about. I know
start
exactly what
line.
you're talking. Yeah, the
So
parents sort of
it
wanted
wouldn't
to
be
jump.
damaging if I spoke to her and said, "Do you mind taking a bit more of a backseat in this lesson?"
Well, in those situations, you could. It depends on the person as to how well they're going to take that kind of advice. But I would, just as an example, if I felt that person, I don't want to offend that person, then I might just say, yeah, no, that's good. Thank you, Joan. In this case, it's not a problem because if I can just I'm just going to get him to focus on the tip of the pick. Once you do that a few times, then they start to realize that you've got a plan, that you know what you're doing. Because it's more a case of them thinking that they have to play a role in this. And sometimes, right from the beginning, it might be good to state this because people will take advice better when it's general and not directed at them than when you do direct it at them. In other words, if you say to someone, "Could you please not do that?" They're like, "Well, that's a bit confronting." But if you say at the beginning, "Look, I'd just like to get everyone's attention at this particular meeting in this particular forum, whatever it is. I don't want anyone drinking, please. Nobody smoking, and could everyone please turn off their mobile phones now? Thank you very much. I appreciate your support." People then they're not offended then because you haven't said, "Hey, could you turn off your mobile phone, mate? You're annoying everybody." That's offensive.
Two of them in the room.
What's that?
As long as there's at least two of them in the room.
Yes. Yeah. So but even it doesn't matter. Even if there's one person in the room when you first have a student turn up, you can still state your rules, your expectations. But we're in this case, where we're talking about a parent and a child. What I usually did with parents is say, "Hi, Joan, nice to have you here. This is great. I'm just going to give you a bit of a rundown how this works. All I'll need you to do is just observe. I'll be taking him through the lesson, and you can just watch and see how it goes." Think of it almost like going to the dentist. The mother's not saying, "Hey, keep your mouth open, Johnny. The dentist needs to do this." The mother stands back. Lets the dentist take control of everything. And that's what you want. You just kind of need to establish that professionalism that, hey, I'll be taking it from here. All I need you to do is observe, and I will be sort of bringing you in every now and again. But for the most part, all you need to do is just watch and it should all go well. And if you do it in a nice way and you do it as a general kind of advice at the beginning, it's not offensive. But when you do it sort of halfway through the lesson, could you please not, interject in my lessons? Thank you. That's taken offensively.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you might have a bit of backtracking to do there, but that's the way that I would approach it. And there's a lot of other ways to do it as well. It's not just in your words. It can be in your body language. It can be in your tone. It can be those first few moments when the parent jumps in that you kind of just nudge them back. It's okay, Mum. We'll be good. No need to jump in there. And I know you guys get what I'm saying. There's just those, can be a certain way you look at them, a certain way, even where you sit them. I would sit a parent, looking at their child from a little bit of a distance, not too far away, but not too close, just enough to keep them out of the range. And if I thought they were a parent who's going to sort of interact too much, then I might push the chair a little bit back more, week two, just to give a little bit more distance there. Put the music stand there or put something, so you'll work it out and you're onto it. So, excellent.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for letting me take almost the whole hangout.
No, that's all right. It's good. It's a very, very important topic, and I know it's one that a lot of guys have had trouble with. So this is good.
Cool.
Paul.
Thanks.
So I'll let Paul throw in another question.
The only other couple of things I've got this week, I've been thinking a lot about retention. Hence the idea of the certificate up up, or the question thereof. Just really a conversation on that. I've got just a few ideas and bits and pieces. Which I suppose ties in a little bit with what Ben was talking about a while ago, kind of the gamification. The way I'm kind of thinking about it, obviously the outcome is to get the levels. What I'm thinking about is just more of a focus on the process of the things like certificates for personal best of practice, some way of rewarding people for duration of attendance, so 6-month anniversary, guitar anniversary, a year, those sort of things. So I'm just kind of, again, throwing around a few ideas and bits and pieces. Just things to chat about, I suppose. And also, one thing that I quite like the idea of was progress, little postcards that I was thinking might be quite good. Just sending out a postcard when someone's done something which I deem as, a bit above and beyond, or something that would be really good just to talk about. Just with a few lines, just saying, well done, Jack. You had a really good lesson on whatever. I was very impressed with how you did this. Again, just kind of all ideas at the minute, but just wonder if there was any others. Retention's my main kind of concern. I think I've got the marketing in place now. Other systems are functioning. It's the retention that I think there's definitely I could do more, and I want to do more. I want to obviously add more value. So yeah, if there's any ideas or I'm up just ideas at the minute. There's not really any questions.
This is a really good topic to talk about, because there are two schools of thought on this, and obviously gamification is the way things are going. You look everywhere. Here in Australia, look at the supermarket. We've got two major supermarkets, and one's called Coles and the other's called Woolworths. And Woolworths have been, created these collectible cards, like animal cards. And all the kids want these animal cards, so naturally they're hounding their, mum and dad to go to Woolworths, not Coles, and so it really made a big difference to their sales. We know recently McDonald's, I don't know if it's in the UK, but McDonald's here in Australia have been running Monopoly. It's like a Monopoly game, and so when people go to McDonald's, apparently they get some, I think maybe, I'm not sure how it works, but maybe they get a card of, Park Lane or something like that, and they collect all the cards, so it keeps them coming back and getting in the game. And this is going on, we can see it everywhere as a consumer thing. Gamification is huge. So that side of it, I understand it, and I know it's something that we could really do a lot with. How we do that and the work involved in doing that and putting that together, I'm not sure. It would definitely need to be a collective effort, and we could sort of come together and sort of create a lot of great ideas, because we already have the foundation, which is the checklists. We already have the practice logs. Is it that when students do a certain amount of practice, they could get a sticker of some kind? We could give them a chart, and they could, put in the stickers and fill the chart. And when they fill the chart, they get, a special certificate or just the feeling, because that's how the animal cards work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the other side of this, and then I'm going to throw to Ben and David here and see if they've got some ideas. But the other side of it, of course, is the Simon Sinek idea, which is I don't know if you guys have read Simon Sinek, but he talks about the why. And that is that you won't see companies like Apple do gamification, and some of the most successful companies in the world would never touch gamification. And the reason they do that, and the argument against gamification, is that it's a manipulation. So what we're doing is, you've got these kids who are going to McDonald's wanting these Monopoly card games and things, but they don't really want McDonald's food. They're not. Maybe they do, but generally the pull for them is to be involved in the game. I know a lot of them still want the McDonald's food, but there are cases, and I remember years ago, you would see kids who wanted these kind of Happy Meals or boxes of cornflakes or whatever just for the toy. They weren't that interested in the cornflakes. They just wanted the toy that came in it. Again, when I was a kid, Weet-Bix in Australia, they had these cards in it which were collectibles, and that's what we wanted. We wanted the cards out of the Weet-Bix, so we'd eat these dry wheat, biscuits that tasted like eating cardboard, just so we could get the cards. And this is the power of gamification. It gets your product selling, but doesn't necessarily get the students, practicing for the right reasons. Does it build? Are we creating passionate guitar players, or are we just creating consumers who want to consume the toys and play the games that we're offering rather than actually learn guitar? So they're the two sides of it, and that's why I want to throw them up at you, so you understand there are two sides to this story. So let me throw back to. Let me just bring David in, because we haven't heard from David yet. David, what are your thoughts on this whole gamification idea?
To be honest, David, I wouldn't do it personally, just because I want students to come to my lessons for the reason which you suggested is the lessons they get a lot from the lessons they're learning. The lessons are fun, and that's my vision and my kind of perspective, really. Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's great. And we need everybody's input here. And I'm not saying there's a right way. That's why I'm giving these two sides to the story.
Yeah.
I do lean towards the same side as you, David, and but it doesn't mean that that it's necessarily the absolute right way. There may be a certain amount of gamification we can bring into it. We just have to be careful that we're not that's not why people come to us for the games, that they're actually coming to it because they really want to learn guitar, or they're motivated by the fact that they're passionate about guitar. So a certain amount of gamification is good, but to what level? So Ben, what are your thoughts?
I'd love it if I could just go without the gamification, but I think that that's never going to happen with a certain age, and even with certain people. Like, not all adults will have the kind of long-term view and maturity to see learning guitar is my goal, and that will take at least 2 years. I can't expect this, but everyone does because that's how we live now. So I feel like the gamification, whether it's an unfortunate tool, it's still a very useful tool for using psychology to, instead of make people really kind of dig deep and go, come on, I want to do this. It's like in Change Anything. It's like, why would you have those 6 people pushing against the car while you just have one of them pushing it up the hill? Why not get everything you can to help you? And I think anytime that there's a little thing that does change what we're doing, then go for it. The thing with me and Aaron were discussing, Classcraft, that would be a change. That's a big thing. But when Paul said progress bars, I thought that would work perfectly for the checklists, especially because we've always had that discussion of how fast. So you could say, I've written an example in the chat for the picking, but for the chords, you could just say the first bit of progress bar you get filled in is just being able to play a C, then being able to play C, G7, and G, then being able to swap between them, then being able to swap between them at a speed using whole notes. There, you're at the checklist. But there's also these 2 extra points past the checklist. Can you swap between them at half notes? Can you swap between them at quarter notes?
Yep.
And that way, you've got that handicap system built in for the people who want it, so you can keep pushing on a checklist even if people have passed the level. People see that they're making progress towards the checklist rather than going, oh, so these chords are in the checklist, are they? And I have to change between them lightning fast. Well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And I think it's about monitoring progress and giving, because of that feedback. And even though there might be a certain amount of gamification in that, I think it's not total gamification in the sense that they're still doing it to learn guitar, but what's happening is they're getting that feedback, which is helping them in the same way a game works, I guess. It's giving you more immediate feedback. And I know what you're saying. There are certain students without that immediate feedback or kind of gratification, they're not going to stick with it, even like you say, adults. So it's a matter of building them in, and that's what I'm saying. There's 2 sides to this, and we want to kind of get the balance. Building it in without it becoming the main game. I think that's the danger, that people are, they're playing the game, but they're not really that interested in learning guitar. So
I mean, the checklist is using those principles, even if it was in no way designed for it. It was just designed to keep things simple. It's still in that sense of we're making progress towards being guitarists rather than, you see that hill 3 years in the future. Once you've climbed that, you'll be a guitarist.
Exactly. When I did, when I did martial arts, getting the belts, the different color belts, that was all it was. That's all we needed. We didn't need any more than that to be motivated. And probably some kids did, but I didn't. And just knowing that by working and training hard, I could get to the next belt, and proudly wear that next color. That was really what it was about.
I didn't even always have new techniques at each belt. There would be a gold belt and then gold belt senior, where you just get a stripe in the middle of the belt, and it's just saying, yep, you're still working through it. You're not quite at orange belt yet, but it's a way to make sure you know you're progressing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I always think, like companies like Apple, when you go to the Apple store, that the simplicity is just, is what people want. It's not overcomplicated. This is what we do. They're lined up. There's kind of phones, computers, and all that stuff, and it's just you just choose one. It's dead easy to buy. There's no, they're not trying to sell you warranty or try to do this or try to do that, and I think that works really well. So for my own kind of teaching and stuff, that I just want to make things simple. This is what we do. This is,
Yeah, I totally agree. Simplification is the hardest thing in the world to do. Keeping things simple. Yeah. It's so easy to make things complex.
Can I jump in? Sorry, Dave.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think saying gamification has passed down the wrong road, because it wasn't really. It was kind of. I couldn't think of a better word for it. But not in the respect of I know what you're saying. You give a toy or something that is irrelevant from what you're actually doing. What I'm really is in my head. For instance, I'm using Headspace, a meditation app, and on there it comes up when you've done 15 days straight, 30 days straight, and I've noticed that's made me want to get that badge. I want to do it anyway, but I'm like, I want my 30 badge, so I'm sticking to it, and I'm aware of that I want to do it next day. So in my head, it's more of keeping people on track by giving them that instant, oh, I've hit 30 days now, I've practiced 30 days straight, I've hit this many minutes, I'm on track, so it's more of a milestone of their progress. I think Ben is on that sort of trail of thought as well. It's not
I think we're all on the same track here, and even David. I think we're agreeing here, which is great, that it's about not getting off track and not making things complex. It's about keeping it simple and yes, having milestones. And we've got the checklists, okay, and that kind of simplifies those levels. But within those, then obviously people are looking, and I do understand what you guys are saying, is that, things like the progress bar and those, they know, like for example with progress bars, they found, and this is why they brought them into computers, is that they found that they made people less tense because they knew. You imagine at a download. I know it's, when something's downloading and you don't know how long it's going to take to download, nothing's more annoying. You're just like, well, how long is this thing going to take to download? Do I sit here for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour? And so just knowing that is a big difference. So I think we really need to take David's take on this, and this is really important. And I think David's going to be our tester for this. We're going to, if we implement these things, which we want to, but they have to be really simple. We can't make things complicated. We can't if we can't explain it to a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, then it's too difficult. It's got to be that easy. So that's the challenge. Is bringing these things into it. It's not. And I don't think David's making his point. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's saying don't do anything. I think more what he's saying is that let's make sure things stay simple and not make things complicated. And that is, to me, is the big challenge. I'm going through this now with the FileMaker program that I'm working on. Most of the time I'm spending on it now is working out how to keep it simple. There's all these things I can do with it, but every time you add something in, it adds more complexity to it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to make these guys have to think about 100 different things. I just want it to actually, so you can not have to think about it, that it's so simple that you just go bang, 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 and everything's obvious. And things like when you're filling in the form, like when you've got a new student enrolling, what should be the next question? You ask their first name, their next name. Should you ask where they came from the advertising first, or should that be something you ask third on the list or fifth on the list? So things like that, and what can I get rid of? What questions are irrelevant or not important? What can I automate? In other words, when you create a new customer card, what is it that I can populate automatically into fields without having to fill it in? So things like that, like time stamping it, for automatically putting them in as an intro student as that level. Things like creating the certificate where it's already populated with everything that is needed from their card, so you don't actually do anything. So I've got it now to where you go to certificate and then you click on one button and it prints and emails it to them. It prints it as a PDF and then emails it. And the steps to get to there, the programming to get to that point has been a lot of steps to get there. So behind the simplicity is complexity. And so what we want to do is we want to hide the complexity so the front of it is simplistic, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think we're all on the same page. Would everyone agree? Yeah.
Yep. Paul,
Okay.
just a quick question. What you should I maybe do is what's been enlightening for me. I took on a work experience girl for 8 weeks, and at the end they not promised a job. But for me, it's been a huge learning curve on training somebody within your business, like maybe doing your administration. And I was training Emily to take card payments. And all that stuff, and I could sit back and watch her in action, and you can almost see how your business works, you know, without you being in it. If that makes sense, you're like the third person. And we was doing like role plays on taking car payments, and when people walk through the door. So I've been observing that how she does it, and then you can sit back and almost do like a little report and slimline it a little bit more. And you know, she didn't say something that was quite right there, and she didn't get to the point, and yeah, and if you just contact the job, I think it's like the job centre or something like that, and say you're happy to take, and you can actually interview them as well, so they're not just going to send anybody to you. But the good thing is, they don't get a job at the end unless you want to take them on. So it's almost like 8 weeks of a trial period, you know. I advise doing it, and it's taken so much administration off me that. With the eMyth stuff as well, I've I can take an extra day off now in the week because I can just leave it with Emily, and she can reply to things and be there. So yeah, it's worth maybe looking into.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've not thought about doing work experience, really, especially not a job centre.
Yeah, it's not school children. It's I think it's people who are just looking for jobs. Generally, and at the end of it, if you don't take them on, then you just the kind of thing is you just write them a like reference and a CV at the end of it on how they've done. So and I think other thing is getting like interns in as well is another possibility. And then you find somebody who's right, you know, then you can take them on. That's my idea anyway, you know.
Great.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's where Emma came from, by the way. Emma came to me. She was in Australia and she couldn't work in Australia. She was basically, she didn't have a visa that allowed her, she had what's called a bridging visa, which allowed her to stay in Australia while she was applying for a proper visa, but she wasn't allowed to work. And she was so bored, and she came into me and said, can I do some work experience here while I'm organising my visa? And she came and worked for me, I think it was, I can't remember how long, maybe it was a couple of months, no charge. And it was exactly that experience that Dave was talking about. It allowed me to serve my systems, and I could see her going through it, learning things and seeing what she wasn't doing that I needed her to do, and things that I was taking for granted. And yeah, that advice is gold. It will really allow you to see where you're at with your business, because it's not about how good you are. That's fine if you're good at what you do, but David and I had this conversation not long ago about you don't want a business that's dependent on you to be the star, because if you're the star of the show, it can't work without you. As soon as you're sick or you go off or whatever, the show doesn't go on anymore. And that's the problem when you're the star. It doesn't mean you can't be a star if you want to be a star. If that's your, if you like that role. I'm certainly not saying, but what you want to make sure is that your business is being built and developed as as Gerber says, business much more than you're working in your business. And one of the reasons, and I've mentioned this a few times recently, that I've switched off the marketing for new teachers is because I was at capacity where if I kept taking on more members, I wasn't going to be working on the business anymore. I would have just been spending all my time working in the business. And so there is a point where you will get enough students to just sort of say, I need to put the brakes on a bit here and not grow anymore. And that's okay, because you do need to make sure you've got time to spend building the business, working on the business and not in the business. So yeah, and that's a great thing to do, is to bring in an apprentice or a work experience or anyone, and let them go through the process and observe them and then see, okay, what systems do I not have that I need to have and put into place. I've been doing this with Sizer, and she's brilliant. She just does most of the things for me now behind the scenes, and most of my time is creative, and that's what I love to do. I love to do creative things. That's why I can work on FileMaker Pro. I don't have to build websites. She does all the website building. I don't have to do the updates and changes, and whenever WordPress does an upgrade, she takes care of those things. I also get her to find applications, that'll fix problems, and not just delegate to her, but delegate the job of finding solutions as well, which is kind of the next level. Find someone who can actually develop your business with you and alongside you, great advice. Thank you, David. That was really good.
Yeah, it's just the experience that I've had over this. Well, it's 7 weeks now, so. And it's been huge, for the 7 weeks that Emily's been here, that, putting systems in place and also writing how-to manuals that you come from the perspective that you only need to show somebody how to do something once and then get them to write a how-to or do a video recording of it. And yeah, so then if you employ somebody else, then it's all set in place. You don't need to show somebody again how to do it. Then you can get your staff to show them how to do it.
you should never do anything twice. Yeah, nothing should ever be done twice. It's only done. Obviously, you want to tweak the system and improve the system, but everything needs to be put into a system. And that's really the secret to it. Yeah. And that really was the turning point for me with the eMyth, and the reason G4 is where it is today is because of the systems that are in place. G4 wouldn't be anything. We didn't have the method. We didn't have the teacher training. You look at the member site. All the different aspects to the training there. We're doing a contract up at the moment for you guys to be able to use for teachers when you hire teachers. There's just all this stuff coming on board, the websites, the Thrive, it just goes on and on with FileMaker Pro. So these are all systems that we're putting into place, and if you're not building systems, and I didn't do it for the first 10 years of my business, I didn't build systems, and so I won't say it was a waste, but I wasn't terribly productive in those first 10 years. I wasn't building a business. What I was doing was making mistakes and learning. I was just doing it. Created myself a job, and that's what most people do in business. They create themselves a job and they keep working at that job until they get bored or sick of it. And if you build a business, it's different. It's like constructing. It's like recording an album, writing an album, and creating an album. You have something to show for your work. But when you don't do that, you don't record your work. It's forgotten. And it serves no purpose beyond that. It paid you some money as you were going along. So build systems is the key. Paul, have we covered that enough?
Yeah. So pretty much. So the main idea just stemmed out of just really praise and reward from people hitting certain milestones. I was just aware that someone said to me, "Oh, I've been here a year," and I thought, "Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I need to have that in place." So when a year comes, I'm like, "Oh, you've done a year, well done," and maybe send them a postcard or something.
I think so. That was really my idea. Yeah, you could even have, I don't know, you think airlines are a good place to look at these kind of things because they kind of reward and acknowledge their, anybody who's kind of flown so many miles or whatever, they bump you, upgrade you, do whatever, acknowledge you. So I do understand you do want to acknowledge your long term, and I think about it even with you guys. I want to acknowledge those of you who have been with G4 for a year or more years, and I'm looking at having something like that where we have a list to show how long each of you have actually been with G4, because not just because of the fact that I should be acknowledging that, but also as new members come on board, they can see the experience that each of you have. So there's not this kind of almost like, lack of a better example, but they're not sort of talking down to you. You've been here for 4 or 5 years, and they're sort of just coming in and thinking that you've only been here 3 weeks as well. It's like, no, this this particular guy's been here for quite a number of years. So if I ask any, who's the oldest member in G4? Do any of you know? He was the first G4 franchisee. Who's that?
Is it Michael Essery?
Exactly. Michael Essery was the very first. Yeah. So Michael is a good one to talk to as well, and not just me, but he's going to give you a different perspective because he's a franchisee. I haven't been a franchisee. I don't know what it's like to be a franchisee. I just know what it's like to run a franchise operation. Michael will tell you what it's like to be a franchisee. So in many respects, he's going to be a better person for you to talk to for certain things, and also within your schools, within your students, acknowledging how long students have been. We could do it right across the network. I wouldn't think that's a bad thing. Maybe any student who's been with G4 for more than a year, let's put them on, a register or a website and acknowledge them and say, hey, and so we can sort of see who's. I don't know how to do it, or I haven't really thought about it, but it's just one of those things that maybe we could create something for a student that's been with us for a certain period of time. So. Cool. We are running a bit late here, but David, did you? I want to give everyone a shot here. So, have you got something you want to talk about?
I have, yes. It's just one student who I've managed to save again, who's coming today, who was ready for giving up. So, if I just read you the email he sent and my reply, if you had any advice on this, I'll just find where the email is. So.
Yep.
Let's find it. So he's put, like, after much consideration and thought, I've regrettably decided that the G4 guitar method is not for me. I'm sure it's a good method, but at the moment in time, I don't want to learn to read music. If I wanted to play classical, then I can see the point, and if I decided in the future to learn classical, and that is a very good chance, I would go down that route. I hope you're not offended by my decision, and I appreciate what you have done. I'm under the impression this is all you can offer. So that's basically to sum the email up. So I replied by saying, I can see your point with regard to reading music, and most students feel the same way in the early stages of learning to read. The benefits come further down the line. Reading music isn't just for classical players. A lot of electrical players learn to read too. I always say to students, do you want to play just a few songs, or would you like to play anything you want? Reading is also good for developing rhythm and understanding what you are playing within the music. And then I kind of went on to how much do you practice reading in a week? And basically, to sum it up, then I said, can you come and see me for a chat? And he's coming down today. So have you got any pointers on approach for this?
I would, with him, I would get to what it is exactly about the reading that he doesn't like. So he's got a kind of a mindset around the reading that it's pointless. Like, what am I going to do with reading? It's a boring thing to do, and I just want to play music. I'm not interested in reading, and so. Sometimes they'll tell you those kind of things that I'm not interested, I don't want to do it, but they're not really getting to the point of what it is about the reading that they don't want to learn, because my angle generally with the reading and trying to convince, and I will sort of come to another point about this in a minute, but my approach was to say to students that I was the same as you, so empathise with them. I was no different to you, and I know in your case, David, that might be a bit difficult because you learned to read at a very young age. But I went through that. I went through my teens not wanting to learn to read music. I actually didn't learn to read music really until I started teaching. And prior to that, I had teachers try to get me to read, but I wasn't really that interested in it. I didn't. I just wanted to play in a rock band. But what changed me was the teaching. That's what the motivation was to learn to read. But then what really got me was when I could do it. And there's a saying that Emma raised the other day, is that competence brings confidence. And so when we can do something, then we start to become a cheerleader for that. So if you know, prior to that, we tend to, you know, not want to do it. We sort of stay away from it. But you know, I'm doing it with learning Japanese at the moment. My Japanese is, you know, average, poor at best. But I know that once my Japanese gets to a certain level, then I will be you know, rocking with it. I'll be onto it. I want to do it all the time. Probably won't be able to shut me up. But it's getting to that point of where I can do it, and that's the hard part for most people. So I think painting a picture, and this is what I did with my students, is first started off with the empathy that I was no different to you. I know exactly how you feel, and then getting to the second stage is sort of asking, okay, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And so, can I ask this? What are the students' goals? What's this? How old's the student, by the way? Just roughly, 20s, 30s,
40s.
40s. Okay, all right. So, this student, why did he want to play guitar? Are there certain songs that he wants to play?
Yeah, he likes on the ultimate song list. He was liking Eagles. He likes acoustic, like steel string acoustic.
Yep.
And basically, yeah, and he's been playing for quite a while. He took lessons in his early days as maybe a teen, and then he's just been fiddling about ever since. He's never really pushed himself to learn, so he enrolled, and I kind of give him the vision what G4's about in the 5-week intro, that, you know, we go for all these skills and it's going to give you, you know, the ability to play what you want, but still take on board the songs he wanted to learn. So he's been doing groups now for, I'd say, about 3 months, 3-4 months. He can identify all the notes on the musical staff up to the 3rd string, which is good. You know, he's halfway there. And he doesn't read fluently. It's very, you know, still counting lines and spaces, which is okay. I keep saying to him, you know, you just got to keep working at that, and then they'll start to imprint. You know, and I keep reassuring him that it's good. Just keep working at the reading. And we was going to hit next week. We was going to start the 4th string. You know, starting the reading on the 4th string. So I don't know in his mindset. There are a few in the group who are slightly more fluent within their reading than he is, and he might be feeling that he's fallen behind a bit. Yeah, so I've been thinking about this quite a bit just before he arrives today, just to have an approach kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's going to be something you're going to come up against, you know, again and again. So trying to solve the problem with him is going to be a good one. And you're not necessarily going to solve the problem with him, but you're going to learn a lot from it. You'll be able to sort of say, well, here's what I've got out of this. So just sort of rolling back a bit there on, you know, sort of his influences, acoustic guitar, you know, Eagles, etc. Some of the things that you could sort of say to him, first of all, you know, not that I really use these kind of examples, but the Eagles, they were originally session musicians. That's how they came together. They're all readers. They're all very good readers. So, you know, but the fact of the matter is that maybe getting him to understand that reading is going to really accelerate him in his learning. And I'm not saying that you can't be a great player, and I'll make this point very clear, because, you know, I would get all sorts of harsh comments from people who aren't readers who are exceptionally good musicians. You can be an exceptionally good musician without being a reader. Reading is not essential, but it's a skill that if you can bring into your learning, you don't know what your strengths are going to be, and if reading is another tool that you bring into your music, it just gives you you know, more opportunities and more ways to learn. So, you know, if you get something like the Real Book, you know, you can tab it all out and learn it, but it's very hard to throw up a chart in front of you, like, you know, from say the Real Book or any of those kind of charts, and just play it, jam it on the spot there and then, and read it off a chart. Tab doesn't do that for you, so he's going to alienate himself in that kind of way. But, you know, my thing with him, what I did with people who didn't really want to read, it was just to get them to the next step. And I just wanted to say to them, look, let's just see if we can learn the next string. Let's just focus on the D. Do another month at least. Do another month. Do another 2 months. And what I'm going to do for you is give you an extra lesson on the reading. You and me were going to spend an hour. I would go to that. I would just pull him aside one-on-one and do an hour with him on reading and working through the reading to see the way that he practices and to see where his sort of frustration, boredom, just as an experiment to see where it is that he's getting stuck on it and not wanting to move forward on it. Because in my mind, he wants to play guitar, but he thinks the reading is just a waste of time, that it's just slowing him down. He'd rather be working on his favourite Eagles songs than learning to read. He doesn't connect the skill of reading to then being able to learn an Eagles song faster and more easily through that. And that's where you want to kind of bring that connection in. It really comes back to the whole thing of connecting skills to songs, and this is what I'm finding is one of the main challenges. Not so much just as a challenge, but it's one of the main things that we need to focus on, and it's where the majority, it's the 80% of problems come from, is just connecting the skills to the songs. And reading, the skill of reading, it's about connecting the skill of reading to the songs he wants to play. So even if you wrote out some simple Eagles tunes, notated them, and just say, I want you to play this, and you put it in the key of C or something, and try to as much as possible to put it on the first 3 strings, and then get him to play it. And if he suddenly realizes he's playing Eagles songs, melodies, whatever, it could work. There's a good chance that he'll see,
one of the skills is to connect to songs is actually the reading. Every other skill is quite basic to connect, because it's the reading. It's unless there is I've given examples in lessons where there's been a group and why are we doing this reading, and I've just said, right, pick a book and just pass me the book and any page. And I've opened the book and just read them and just played it, from the music, and they're like, "Wow, right? I can see how that connects." But that's the only way I can think of that I've done that's connected.
Yeah.
The skill of reading music. I can't. I'm struggling to make connections with popular songs, if that makes sense. But I can see that now. Maybe writing some out on going on Cubase or something and scoring some.
Yeah.
Some popular songs out and
songs. Get some songs off his ultimate song list, and it doesn't even have to be the whole song. You can just pick out a little bit of it. Maybe the chorus. If it's I don't know what Eagles songs he likes, but let's say Life in the Fast Lane, the riff. If you could sort of write that out in notation, those notes are a bit low, but if you could write it out in a higher octave, then you could probably fit it in, because it's an E blues thing, so all the notes are pretty well in the key of C anyway. So I think just it's going to be about connecting those things, those songs that he wants to play. Connecting his goals is really the key, and letting him see that reading is a skill. And for different reasons, the skills, it's not connecting, even though we say skills to songs, because songs are what most people want to do, it's really connecting skills to their goals. What do you want to do with guitar? Yeah, where do you want to go with guitar?
So if we just recap on the main stuff, the topics, I should have wrote this down, but the main topics is just connecting the reading to his goals, finding out where the struggles are, just sitting back a bit, watching him play.
Go through the process. Go through the process of him actually practicing his reading. What does he do? Where does he seem to get stuck or bored or losing confidence?
Okay.
They're the two main things. Yeah, I think if you do those, and having that. Well, if we go back to the first thing I said, is it's having that empathy. Somehow, you're going to have to sort of do it from a different angle. Maybe it's not reading for you; it's something else, where you sort of relate your story about. I know how you feel in the beginning. I didn't want to, and it's a standard sort of script, but it works. Where I gave the example of Japanese, I don't want to learn all this grammar and stuff. It's really boring. I just want to speak Japanese. Why do I have to learn the grammar? but learning the grammar and learning the writing. I spent time learning all the kana in Japanese, and now I can actually read most kana, but I can't read the kanji. The kanji's the other more complex set. The Chinese characters, the kana is their basic language, and the reason is with kana, most kana is it's where they use it for English words. So when you see something like hamburger, it's written in kana. So I can read all these words, and because they use a lot of English words interpreted, switched into Japanese, but it's written in kana. So so doing that, and it was painful to do it. And there's 50 of them to learn, and I had to memorize them all and practice and go over and over again, and then start looking at words and putting words together. It took me a while to do it, but once I did it, I got over that hump. It didn't actually take that long to memorize the kana. I think it took me about 3 or 4 weeks to memorize the kana, but then putting it into practice took a little while longer. But then when I did it, and then I went to Japan, and was suddenly all this stuff I never understood. I could start to look at things. Oh, I know what that means. I know what that means, and it was great. And that's the moment where you turn the corner, and that's where you want to get him to. And you can say, I'm just using my story with language. And if you've got a story, you can use that about how I went through this, and there was the struggle, and then I got to this point where, wow, suddenly I see it. I can see how this is going to work for me, and that's what you want to get across to him. Is there something in his life that he can relate to like that, where it seemed like a struggle in the beginning, it seemed worthless and pointless, but then you got to that point where, I can see it now. I can see this is so powerful, and that's what you want. You want him to feel. If we go back to Doug Lemov, and they talk about, he talks about, I think it was poetry or something he was talking about, that he studied at university, and it's about having that passion and saying, I want to bring you to the other side, because when you get to the other side, it's so cool. You're just going to be, I can't explain it, but when you learn to read this whole world, you'll feel like a musician. You know the language, and I don't want you to miss out on that. And that's why we it's a big part of what we do, because we want you to know what it's like to be a musician, not just be a guitar player that plays songs, but to actually know what a musician feels like and to understand the language of music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Show your excitement and really believe in you. See, you believe in reading. He just needs to know how much you believe in it, and then that pure curiosity is enough to drive or motivate most people to stick with it. And they're like, and you'll see, people will change. They will go, I don't know. And then eventually they go, oh, well, I can see how excited you are about it, so I'm going to hang in there and I'll give it a go. And that's, people feed off your passion for something. So.
Cool. I will let you know the outcome, David.
Cool, good, yeah. And, it's a learning experience, and you're not going to save everybody. And at the end of the day, the main thing is that you stick to what you're doing, because he's going to walk away with more respect for you. If you caved in and said, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's he's asking for other options, and I thought about that. I thought, well, I'm not changing what I do just for one student. I'm sticking to my guns, and this is what I do. I know it works. Yep. It's the best.
I believe in it. Yeah, I believe in what we do, and I believe in the importance of reading. Yeah. And if I say, oh, well, okay, well, I'm going to make another option, that just shows him that you don't really believe in what you're doing. It was all just a story, and then you lose credibility and you lose the respect from the student. It happens.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. I better go. That was a good one. It was a good session. So yeah, I'll see you on the next round. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
See you, David.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.